This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Right. How you doing, Ira? How you feeling?
I'm doing good, and I got to tell you, there's a hell of a lot going on between Derrick Rose, between the Heat filling out their training camp roster, in our media world, Big O, between Woj being gone since we last talked, and now Zach Lowe being gone. Yeah, this season is starting quite interestingly, isn't it?
Yes. There's a lot of good stuff going on, and again, I'm looking forward to this season, and I wanted to ask you about something because, again, you and I go next level when we start talking about these kind of things, and I see Jimmy Butler coming in, and we think, the way everything looks, it looks like Jimmy Butler has a lot of leverage here, doesn't it? Right?
Yes and no. I would say
good. Hold on. Don't do that. I'll let you answer, but I want to ask you a question because maybe you and I are in the same page here. I think the Heat are completely in the driver's seat here because Jimmy Butler needs to have a good season. He needs the Heat in order to get his next contract, not necessarily from the Heat, but from somebody else, because sure, he can have a good year or a bad year and then opt into his last year, and that would be his last year, because after that, nobody's going to offer you anything near that. But if you have a good year and Miami's able to facilitate a trade for you, that next team is going to pay you for several years. So then you're going to be able to milk it a lot longer. So technically, the Miami Heat are probably more in the driver's seat in the Jimmy Butler situation than even Jimmy Butler, because sure, they might be on the hook for another year, but Jimmy Butler really wants a couple of more years. So he needs to play nice with the Heat. He needs to play nice with the NBA. He needs to kind of play nice overall if he really wants to get the big finish. Your thoughts on that?
it's all about the money. And who has the money? The Heat have the money. Who wants the money? Jimmy Butler wants the money. Those who want the money follow the money, and those who have the money decide how the money is spent. The Heat are always in charge in this situation. This is not a capitulation team. This is not the Timberwolves groveling so Jimmy has to make his team. This is not the 76ers having to choose between Tobias Harris and trying to placate. These are the Heat. Pat Riley is the one who called out LeBron James when LeBron had 2 feet out the door with smiling faces and hidden emojis and all of that. That's who he is. Pat Riley's the one who sat down with us last May when I asked about Jimmy's lost time, when I asked about Jimmy's impending contract window, and goes, what contract window? We don't have to deal with that until next spring. And then, even after Jimmy's agent initially comes out and goes, no, we're going to get this taken care of now, we owe it. They owe it to us. It just goes away. All of a sudden, we haven't heard anything from Jimmy, haven't heard anything from the Heat. They always control the narrative. Big O, you've been around long enough in the Pat Riley era. The Miami Heat control their own narrative. They don't give it away. They don't cede it to a player. They don't cede it to a coach. They don't cede it to media. They control the narrative. This is so different than what you were talking about the Dolphins before our accurate Pembroke Pines report today. How it seems like the Dolphins get caught up in every sort of narrative from outside, and they almost wind up playing defense, and you can do it with the smiles and jokes and hair and glasses and watch of Mike McDaniel. You can do it through the Cam Cameron lose together, fall back forward, whatever the hell you want to call it. He don't do any of that. We're in charge. We control the narrative. Play our game or play somewhere else. And it gets ugly sometimes like it did with the Dwayne Wade situation. But say what you want about that, Big O. The Heat even controlled the narrative then. That's who they are. That is a strong organization that lets you know, play by our rules and play ball with us, and we'll play ball with you.
Yeah, so I don't know, would you tell the Heat fans that they actually might get regular season Jimmy? Like they actually might see him now?
If the Heat don't get regular season Jimmy, then I think all hell breaks loose. I think Pat Riley, who talks once a year, talks more than once a year. Eric Spoelstra, who is the ultimate players coach, maybe gets a little saucy and a little testy. This play when you want type of thing doesn't work anyway, hasn't worked, has put the Heat in play-in holes right now. There's no magic coming off of. After 2 seasons ago.
By the way, it's an insult to their culture. It's just an insult to their.
It's an insult to their fans. It's
not,
an insult to their following.
It's not who they are as employees, as cooks, as trainers, as coaches, as players, as front office. That's not who that organization is.
Big O, if I don't write stories, if I
just loafing off, and the
exactly.
entire organization, all they ever do is work their asses off.
If I don't write stories, I don't get paid. If you don't show up and do your show, you don't get paid from your sponsors.
No.
Anyone else, you have to produce work to produce income. We know the players are taking over in the NBA, and I appreciate it. And if you're the kind of player who can say, just wait till the playoffs, I'll take care of you, fine.
Right.
We all gave them a pass last season because they got to the 2023 NBA Finals against the Denver Nuggets. Well, you know what? Whether you want to call it on Survivor, The Idol, whether you want to call it old school Monopoly, get out of jail free card, Jimmy doesn't have anything to play. Jimmy can't put any Uno pick 6 in there and make you pick more cards out of the deck.
Right.
This is Jimmy having to live in the moment. And Big O, in the NBA, the moment is every game, is every quarter, is every minute, is every possession. Now we'll see, can Jimmy at 35 still be that? And if he chooses not to be, then there becomes the question of whether he can still be that.
Yeah, well, I hope so, because if he does, this can be a really fun season, I think, because you've got players that are on the brink of maturing for you and helping you out and becoming even better players. And then there's really the excitement of Khalil Ware, because he can really add a dimension that you didn't have that maybe could free up Bam to do something else a little bit more. So it just, man, I almost think that even watching Pallet, he has a little streak to him. So I think you're adding more players that have an edge to them that are willing to play Heat defense, and just like Jaquez or any of these other cats. I just think you have more and more of the kind of players that you need with the kind of attitude that you want from the Heat on both sides of the court. And if Jimmy can really play like he's supposed to play, I think it just, it lifts all ships. It rises all, the tide rises all ships, or whatever. How is that saying that goes? I just think it could be one hell of a season. I'm not saying championship, but a lot of fun, man.
There could be hunger throughout this roster. Right. Bam Adebayo clearly wants to be a leading man. You and I will debate that later, but he wants to be, so he's hungry. Tyler Hero wants to get out of the narrative of only being a limited player. He's hungry. Terry Rozier wants to get past last season's injuries. He wanted to get a playoff team. He's here. He's hungry. The young kids, like you mentioned, the Jovic's and the Jaquez, they're young enough to still be hungry. The newcomers, whether it's a Josh Christopher, a Khalil Ware, or Pelle Larson, they're hungry. They want to make their mark. It is awfully hard to have all this raging hunger sitting there and a guy in the corner going, yeah, I'll show up when I want to. Right. You guys take it now. I'll be there for you tomorrow. That's really hard for a coach to manage, even the best coach in the NBA to manage. So this Jimmy thing, I did a thing for my Sunday Notes in the Sunset that I'm working on. There's no bigger question than Jimmy. And I didn't even phrase it in the form of the question. I said 10 questions about the Heat season. Number 1, Jimmy Butler, period, not question mark. It's all about how he approaches this season, because that permeates the locker room. So when you were talking about the Heat controlling the cards, the best way for Jimmy to do it is to show Pat Riley by midseason, by the trading deadline, by the end of the season, you still have your superstar here, sir, or you don't. This is the pressure season for Jimmy. This is a prove-it season. Now, when we go to Kaseya Center on Monday for Media Day and we go to Jimmy, is it a prove-it center? He'll laugh in our faces and go, 3 Eastern Conference Finals the last 5 years I've been here, I've gotten it done. So it's a matter of, as you know with the Dolphins and everyone else, are you going to live in the past or live in the moment? You know what? Screw the past. It's the moment. It's training camp. We're going to be in the Bahamas. It's all about the now. You've already gotten paid for past services. Show you should get paid for future services.
Yeah. And by the way, in the Heat's eyes, They're not about getting there. They're about winning the championship. So to them, it's unfinished business. That's the way they look at it. Because
And they're about success. And at least when they got to the finals and the Eastern Conference finals and extended runs, we know what it was like down here. We
yeah,
also
great.
know.
It's great. But
Yeah.
but that this organization's at another level.
Correct.
They're about hanging that banner at the end. You know what I mean? So Jimmy can brag about being there and you can be proud about it, but that's not really what Riley and Spo are all about in the end, or Harrison.
Mhm.
They want to actually hang that next banner. Okay. That's
I
kind
don't
of what,
disagree.
yeah, you know, that's who they are. That's what they've been. They're not happy with just Eastern Conference. That's good for the resume, but that doesn't fill the trophy case the way they want it to. So, you know, to them, that's where they want to get to. They're unsatisfied with just playoff runs. So that's the beauty of being a Heat fan.
Who they are.
That
Yes.
you're spoiled, man. It's not like now the Panthers are that now. Now the Panthers are that now because they've been to the Stanley Cup a few times and now they want it. And now they want to become that next Tampa Bay Lightning type team, you know, in the NHL. That's their next step. You know,
And now that the Panthers brought the cup to Kaseya Center, the Heat want to bring the Larry O'Brien over there to Amaranth Bank Arena.
right,
Absolutely.
exactly. The Dolphins are another level. They're just trying to establish themselves
Mhm.
as an often playoff participant before they can even think about titles. But
Agreed.
the Heat, they're a championship caliber organization.
Correct.
All right, so talk to me. This is a deep ass roster now. And so there's a lot of decisions on the back end that Spo's going to have to make.
You know what? I know you want to go there because there's interesting names. But if you're going to talk deep ass roster, I'm going to go the other way.
Okay.
Unless you have an ultimate leading man, a guy who's your definitive everyday going to get it done guy, it's awfully hard to win in any sport, especially the NBA.
Sure.
So does Jimmy at 35 still have it? Does Bam Adebayo coming off the Olympics still have it? Can Tyler take it to another level? Maybe. To me, that's where it starts. I love the other stories, Big O. I agree. I want to see Khalil Ware. Josh Christopher was awfully cool. Hake's in his second season. Jovic, basically his second season. These are all wonderful stories. But I got to tell you, every year, the team that leads the NBA in bench points is one of the worst teams in the NBA. Why? Because the starters suck. And someone's got to play and someone's got to get the point. So, yes, when you follow me in the narrative, and we'll talk next week in our accurate Pembroke Pines report from Baja Mar in the Bahamas, I will talk about all the little wonderful stories and good guys I spoke about. But you know what? It's about Jimmy, it's about Bam, it's about Tyler, it's about Terry. Because the Heat tried to inject greatness in there. They tried to inject Kyle Lowry. He wasn't good enough, and they ran into a limit. That's where this Heat team is. When you go down the Eastern Conference playoff race, even talk about the best player on every team. Did the Heat have someone say as good as Jason Tatum, as good as Jalen Brunson, as good as Joel Embiid, as good as Tyrese Halliburton or Pascal Siakam, as good as Donovan Mitchell? It's really hard to compete with teams. Paolo Banchero, if you want to go with. It's hard to compete with teams unless your best can play on an equal or better level with their best. This Heat team is a lovely story of hardworking guys who, as you would say to me every week in the accurate Pembroke Pines report, have the best coach in the NBA who helps compensate for a lot. But Big O, that's a hard way to do it over 82 games and 2 months of the playoffs.
Yeah, but what I meant by deep was that not I know they're top end, and that's what's going to need to carry them. But it looks like the back end, they loaded up with guys that are almost all the same and kind of talent wise. So like those back like 6 roster spots or 5 roster spots, he's going to I don't know who the hell they're going to keep, actually.
Which will make for great competition in camp.
Yeah.
I still worry about 2 positional needs, and that's backup or even starting power forward. Not a lot there. And gosh, I've spoken about this for a decade, and Pat Riley has noted it, point guard. Because Tyler's a scorer. Terry's a scorer. Yeah. Who's the lockdown point guard? When Donovan Mitchell comes to town, when a quick point guard comes to town, who defends those players? I mean, it's gotten to the point, Bam Adebayo has defended those players at times because he's as good as they can do. Yes, they have a lot of 6'6", 6'7" athletes, and they love that, for Eric Spoelstra's words, positionless and switchability. I get that. But I also think at some point you have to balance out your roster a little more. So I really say, you talk about it all the time, how Chef Eric Spoelstra will go to the kitchen and we'll see what he can cook up. Because honestly, you got to smell what the Spo is cooking to figure out how these pieces are all going to fit together.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. So what'd you think of all the shock in your biz with the insiders going? I get the whole thing with Woj or any of these guys. I don't care who you are. You live with your phone the entire time, dude. You
It's
never.
no life to live if you have a wife, or you have kids, or you have family or anything. So I get that. I think Woj's thing, I wouldn't be surprised if that was more of a familial decision than his alone.
Sure.
Because you know it is when you do your show with your wife, when you're available, when you're not, that comes into it.
And once you have enough money,
Yeah,
you're
well,
like,
even Zach Lowe. So many people are feeling bad for Zach Lowe today being laid off. The guy was making 7 figures. The guy in his last 3 years probably made more than I did in my career. So God bless Zach. He'll land on his feet. But that's often what happens when you get in the stratosphere and people are looking to cut. A lot of times they know if they cut off one head at the top, it's easier than 20 heads below. You still need a staff. I do wonder if ESPN is going to move out of the news breaking game, because I got to tell you, Big O,
yeah.
that's all about Twitter clicks and the looks. But it doesn't generate necessarily, as you know in your business, the clicks where you need it for ad support, for people noticing, versus, hey, look at me on Twitter. You know, almost like you have one of those clown nose and you're beeping it and making a noise. So it's all well and good for the newsbreakers. The one thing I think is important, the one thing I try to do here every week with you and the Accurate Pembroke Pines Report, context. So often lately with these newsbreakers, this is happening. But what does it mean? But what does it mean that this guy signed somewhere? What does it mean that this guy's coming back from injury? I think that's what we've lost in our business, Big O, is context as much as just boom, 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 tweet, tweet, tweet.
Yeah, because the person that consumes doesn't really end up caring about the context. They just kind of want the headline and the shock of the story, and then that's enough for them to run with whatever opinion they want to formulate.
Yes, you know, and they don't click on the story, they don't click on the YouTube video, you don't get your traffic. So there's part 2 of that also. That's a little inside baseball, but it's all part of it. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting. What'd you think of the Derrick Rose retirement?
I love a player who knows when he reaches the finish line. And and obviously the NBA lifestyle affords you enough to walk away from millions because you can anyway. There are so many Heat ties to Derrick Rose. As a matter of fact, I was doing the Big O show back then in the day. The Heat end the season in 2008. They were awful. That was the Stephon Lasme, Blake Ahern, Kasib Powell year when they finished 15-67. They finished that season 18 games worse than Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
And we go to the lottery, and who wins the lottery? The Chicago Bulls. And for weeks on end, the Bulls say, well, we don't know who we're going to take, and Pat Riley does the dance. Pat Riley damn well sure wanted Derrick Rose. Pat Riley wound up with Michael Beasley, and as they say, the rest is history. Yeah. Rose goes on to a career. Michael Beasley's been out of the league for 3 or 4 years already. Derrick Rose goes on, makes his fame, has his moments, maybe not a championship, but a Rookie of the Year and an MVP also. So I think the Heat will always be linked to an extent with Derrick Rose also for what he did with a rival. But imagine if those ping pong balls went a little bit differently and the top of the draft went differently. Although some would say, hey, Ira, if that happened in 2008, maybe LeBron, Bosh, and Wade doesn't happen in 2010. So you have that on your plate also.
Yeah, yeah. I love that he took out 6 full-page ads in the 6 different cities that he played in to thank the fans and the organizations and all that. I thought that was pretty classy on his part.
It was a classy move, and I like without a newsbreaker, he was able to set the narrative of his own retirement, which almost seems fair. I can't tell you, with the newsbreakers, talking about the Wojers and the Shams and the others, how many players I'll talk to who are pissed that the news doesn't get out in a way that they wanted to get out of the way to offer their full reasoning. Instead of player asks for a trade, no, my wife is from X, Y, or Z. I want to go back to the city. I need to do something. I'm hurting. There's a difference with the coach. That's what happens. I'm glad that Derrick Rose got to leave on his own terms. Not a lot of people, honestly, in any business do.
Yeah. Yeah. But hey, if you're the agent and you work for the same agency that has most of the players, well, you know.
Now we'll see what happens next. You're right.
Yeah, we'll see. Follow him on Twitter at Ira Heatbeat. Subscribe to the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Ira, as always, thank you, my brother. We will catch up next week.
Next week from the Bahamas, where if you get a car from Accurate Pembroke Pines, they drive on the wrong side of the road. So be very careful. I'll catch you next week, Big O.
You got it. Enjoy yourself. There you go. The great gambling at Bahamas. I like it. I like it. And you can do it here at Hialeah Park. No gamble at Accurate Pembroke Pines at 15601 Pines Boulevard. Why? Because I can guarantee you can get the 2025 Integra right now for $339 a month. And I can guarantee you, no gambling. 3.9% financing for 60 months. The ZDX, you want to get electrified, you can get it for $479 right now. 0.9% financing for 72 months. That is awesome. The RDX, they still have a few left. 2024 models, $379 a month, and you can get it 3.9% financing. Check out the lot. Check out the selection. They've got a beautiful selection of certified pre-owned vehicles at the finest dealership. Will be there tomorrow. That is Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.